Hello, hi everyone. A very good afternoon. You can see a lot of comments already there coming in, a lot of people watching us. I believe more will join us meanwhile we walk through the bootcamp itself today. But thank you so much for spending your valuable time and joining us for this bootcamp on a Friday afternoon. Wonderful to see so many responses coming in. So thank you so much. We will quickly get started on the piece now that we are already 5, 7 minutes of delays there. Uh, so yeah, today we are here to discuss more about AI Builders Lab and deep dive ourselves more into AI Studio offered by Google for developers. And we will be quickly joined by two of our key speakers today. Uh, can we have the speakers on the stage? We have today with us Harsh Rani. He's the program manager at Google, and where he oversees initiatives such as Google Developer Groups. So, quick introduction about Harsh is I can just summarize that as a passionate developer advocate. Harsh is deeply into empowering developer communities through various Google-led programs and initiatives. So, basically, focuses on fostering innovation, providing hands-on guidance on Google products, and helping developers stay at the forefront of cutting-edge technology. But that is very smaller things that I can say about Hirsch out of a lot of things that he do eventually to uplift the developer ecosystem altogether. But quickly over to you, Harsh. Why don't you just quickly give us your quick introduction, and we can then call up the next speaker. Yeah,
Sure. Thanks, Shakti, for having me here. Am I audible? All good?
yeah,
Thank you.
I can
Okay,
hear you.
okay. Thanks and welcome all the participants who are joining us live today. It's good to see that you are spending your Friday afternoon to learn new technologies, new skills. And I promise it's a good investment of your time. You will not regret after attending this workshop. So let me quickly share my screen. I'll set the context over here. So today, what we are going to learn today is using Gemini APIs, and also we'll cover part of AI Studio as well. How Gemini APIs can be used to build an AI application. If you are new to the world of AI, this is the first thing to learn as well. It helps you know more about Gemini, what is Gemini API, and how you can build your application in language of your choice. So team will walk you through all the steps, and please follow it. Wherever you have doubt or if you miss anything, you can rewatch the recording, but utilize the best of your time today. Yes, so I'll not take much time, but I want to talk about a software development workflow. I believe most of us are already aware about it, about the software development workflow. If we divide it if we divide it in two parts, there would be two parts. First is inner loop, where we write code, build plans. We also test it, and once it's done, our code moves to the outer development moves to the outer loop side, where we manage our release, we deploy it. Once it's deployed, we need to operate and constantly keep monitor our development as well, our workload as well. So this is a software development workflow. Now today you would learn Gemini API and AI Studio, and you can use those technology in all of this development workflow, be it write code from planning to testing to building development, deploying it as well, operating as well. So this is a beginning of your journey where you will cover how AI can be used at most of these places and make you more productive. So in Gemini, there are three verticals. First is Gemini Advanced. Gemini Advanced, it's, I believe few of you have already used Gemini, where you can ask questions and AI can generate, based on prompt, AI can generate responses. So that obviously we can use to write documents, build documents, I'm talking about software development workflow side. Then there is Gemini API. If you want to involve or build AI related features in your existing application, or if you want to build new AI application, you can use Gemini API. So that's what we are going to learn today. And in future sessions as well, we'll learn more about Gemini Code Assist, how Gemini can help you write better code, identify bugs, do unit test case, you do unit testing as well. Sorry for the background noise, but there's some construction going on. Nothing, it's not in my control as well. So this AI Studio can quickly help you try different prompts. So you must have heard about the word prompt engineering, and you might be thinking where to start prompt engineering, how to learn prompt engineering. So today you are at best place to start your journey in it. Use Google AI Studio to try and experiment with different prompts. Use Gemini API to build your solutions. Experiment with it. It's free to use. You are not going to get charged and either for AI using AI Studio or Gemini API unless you use it in your free trial limits. So you will not get charged for that, and no credit card is required to sign up. So it's completely free. And with this, I just wanted to give a quick introduction on what's going to covered in this workshop, and that's all from my side. But if you need any help, any assistance, please reach out to team as well. If you have any feedback, you can let them know. They can pass it over to us, and we'll be ready to help you. Over to you, Shakti.
Thank you so much, Harsh. Wonderful getting those insights from you on the coverage of today and what are we, actually, why are we doing this overall initiative? So thank you so much. I hope the participants who are watching us today live got some gist of what are we going to cover and deep dive into today's overall boot camp. But thank you so much for being there with us, and it was always a wonderful, time to spend with you on the screen and get more gist. So I also like to call upon Rohan Muju. Rohan, if you're there with us, hi Rohan. Thank you so much for joining us. Rohan is a product manager at Hack2skill, and he's going to walk us through the overall hands-on workshop using AI Studio and also walk us through the Gemini APIs as well. So Rohan, if you can take cover and take up your screens, but like to thank Harsh again for sharing his insights. Yeah, thanks Harsh.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I just actually would like to start by saying that I'm really excited to be part of this session, because what I've felt is that it's always been a very daunting task to get into the world of AI. Even with the advent of LLMs and all, it's still very daunting for anyone, especially someone who's very new to the field of AI, to get into it, start practicing it, actually start building things with it. So I think through this platform, it's a really great place for people to get started in the world of AI, and it can act as a perfect launchpad to get acquainted and comfortable in the world of AI. So I'm really excited about it, and let's hope we all get to learn something new together through this. So I'll quickly get started then. Uh, right. So even before we get started, right, I'd quickly like you all to actually, uh, for the best, get the best and the most out of this session and workshop. Like all of you to go through this whole process and journey of actually setting up your Google AI Studio account and generating an API key. So I'll just quickly uh, I'm just flashing this. I believe it's the QR is on the screen. You guys can scan it through your phone. You guys can visit the Bitly link as well. And the process is very simple. You will be prompted with certain things, and at first you have to request to get the API key. Then you can go through the terms and conditions, the legal notice, and you have to accept the consent. And once you continue, you have to click on this thing called create API key. And once you have done that, you can create an API key in the new project. And for this, Google AI Studio will automatically create a project for you. You don't need to have any existing project created for that. And once an API key is generated, it will look something like this. In the table you're seeing, right, that it says a project name, project number, API key, and then you'll be good to go, right? So I'm just quickly taking everyone here, and in the time that everyone actually goes through this process, I understand that we might have a lot of people here. So through chat, can you guys let me know how many of you already know what APIs are and how APIs are used? Just a quick yes or no would help or suffice, right? So because I'll actually want everyone to be able to follow every part of this whole session very easily. So those of you who already know what APIs are might easily have caught on that what we might be starting to do, right? But for those of you who don't know what APIs are and are actually new to the world of programming as well, I'd quickly give a very brief, 2 to 3 minute explanation of what actually APIs or application programming interface, as we call them, are, right? So whenever a company or any one of us for that matter, ends up building a software that we want people outside to use as well, to leverage as well. For example, if I take example of Google only, Google wants maybe, let's say, their maps to be used, for example. So they'll provide certain functions which are exposed to be used by people and developers outside of their own organization and well through these tools called APIs. So via an API, basically a developer is made available and is given access to the code that is sort of private, the business logic for which is private, but through the API, the application programming interface, anyone can leverage and use it. So till now we have been using Gemini as a product. I'm pretty sure you must have all gone to the Gemini website once, right, and used it, asked it a lot of prompts and done a lot of things, right, with it. But imagine now if instead of just talking to Gemini, you will be able to leverage other salient settings and features within Gemini as well at your own control. Make Gemini to do things at your own will. So that is the whole, uh, sort of a thing we achieve by actually generating this API key. Through this API key, not only are we able to leverage Gemini as a software tool that we can use, but we are able to leverage it as a coding tool as well for our own sake and for our own programs as well. So I'll quickly just want everyone to sign up to this AI Builders Lab. I'll just quickly walk you through the process, the slides once more, and then we'll quickly switch on to AI Studio Lab. And for those who are facing any issues, no need to worry. Once we're done with the session, maybe a quick session or sometime in between to catch up, I'll walk everyone through the process once again, just so everyone's able to get the most out of this session, right? So as I mentioned that as and when you land on the website, you have to just click on this thing called get an API key. Then you have to read the terms and conditions, give your consent that you actually want to sign up for this program. Once you click on continue after giving your consent, you need to click on create API key here or this get API key button here. It will show this pop-up. You have to click on got it. Create API key in a new project. If there is no project created, it will give you this option. Otherwise, it will by default create a project for you as well. And once it's created, it will start showing up in the table right below like this. Earlier, it was showing create an API key to see your projects, and now it will start showing it here. So this is the simple steps that we need to follow. And once everything is done, it should look something like this. You will have a table here maybe, and you'll see that if I'm now clicking on create API key, it's already showing me my project, this Gemini API, and my first project as well. So you're able to create projects on your own as well. And since this tool has been made for people who are new to the world of AI, it even takes care of doing everything on its own. That is even creating a project, because a lot of times people might not be aware of what actually cloud projects are or things like that as well. So even that is taken care of. Anyhow, quickly moving on to the Gemini, the AI Studio itself. So the very first time you'll come on AI Studio, you'll see a user interface that is similar to this, right? And you'll quickly notice that there are few things that are familiar, like similar to Gemini or any other LLM. There's a chat window where I can ask it anything. Can you make a poem for me, maybe for example? That is still there, right? But at the same time, there is something here on the top as well, right? There is something here. There are certain things called system instruction. Then there are a whole lot of settings on the side as well. So before actually we get started with anything, right, I'd actually want you all to understand what actually all of these things are and how we can leverage them to get the most out of our quick and fast Gemini model, right? So let's quickly create a new prompt. So the first and foremost thing is that this is not something new. This you might have seen in Gemini as well, that you can name your prompts that you are starting already. So let's call it our demo. Okay. For AI student. Now, the very next thing you'll notice is system instruction. So what system instructions are that if any of you would have used any LLM model, right? Many times we need to keep repeating. For example, that if I'm asking the Gemini model to, write a mail for me, I need to keep adding the prompt saying, write the mail as if you're a professional, or write the mail as if you're a expert in maybe English, write a mail or explain this to me as if I am in maybe an engineering school, or explain to me it in such a way that even a 5-year-old can understand. There is always this persona that we have to give to Gemini as to how it should explain, what tone it should explain in. So system instructions are basically what enable us to assign a persona, a tone, and instructions to Gemini as to how it needs to answer every time we ask him a question. So for example, if I, in this case, answer everything as if you're explaining it to a 5 to 10-year-old, right? And don't use difficult words, right? Difficult words, simple. So now anything and everything I'll ask Gemini, right? I don't have to write it again and again. Can you please simplify? Can you please can you please simplify? Can you please, explain it in an easier way? Every time Gemini will automatically be taking care of this. I'll just give you an example. Okay. What is let's take example go, how do trees make their food, right? How do trees make their food? I'll just run, and now you will see that it automatically started adding things like, imagine trees have a superpower, like it's explaining to a kid, like making their own yummy snacks. So you can see, right, just by adding a simple system instruction, we are able to set the tone, the persona of the responses that we want to get out of Gemini. And that's actually just the beginning. Moving on to the sidebar, actually, we'll go to this sidebar as well. But moving on to here, the very first thing you'll see is there's this drop down called model, right? And this will have a lot of options. This will have a lot of options, right? So it has the option of Pro, Flash, and a lot of things. So what basically these models are, that each of this models you'll see in the drop down has its own speciality, right? So for example, the Pro model, I'll quickly explain you that basically Gemini not only accepts text as an input, but here you can also, supplemented audio media. So for example, if I give it this, add to the prompt, which animal is this, right? And I run, it will be able to tell you which, and this is a cute little cat, again answering as if it's telling to a 5 or 10-year-old. So the Gemini Pro model is more suited for, handling very intense and big multimodal inputs. When I say multimodal inputs, I'm mostly talking about processing videos, and doing many other things like that. For example, I'm pretty sure that all of you must have seen Avengers Endgame, right? So let's say I actually don't have that movie on me, but if I were to upload Avengers Endgame on Gemini, and I would ask Gemini to tell me the exact scene where Thor throws the hammer on Thanos' head, and Thanos says, you should have gone for the head instead of hitting me elsewhere, and then snaps the finger. Gemini will be able to tell you the exact time. I'll just show it through a very small example. I don't have the Avengers movie to show that example, but how many. So this is a sample video of the American Museum of Natural History. How many dinoskeletons are in this video? I'll just quickly ask this and I'll run. And once you guys are on here as well, you can actually verify that whatever it's counting, you'll see it's taking some time. So not only can I give it text input, I can give it other types of input as well. And it will take some time, but in that time, it will be able to process the whole video and tell you precisely what is happening in the video, how it's happening in the video. While it's processing and doing everything else, let's quickly move on to the other things in the sidebar. So the token count is a very important thing. So like how you and I are talking in English, when we are talking in English, we always wait. Yeah, so it gave the answer. There are 10 dinosaur skeletons in the video. Right? Anyways, so like I was saying that whenever we are talking, talking in English, right? We always, the unit of exchange is called a sentence, and a sentence is made up of words, right? So many times if you're writing an exam, you'll be told write the answer in 50 to 100 words, write the answer in 500 words, or write the answer in 3 pages. At least if it's a very big question, it has to be 3 pages. If it's a small question, 1 page. So we always have an estimate of how much to write and what to write. Similarly, LLMs talk and break things down in the mode of tokens. Anything, even this video given to it, you'll see currently it's saying 89,027 tokens used out of 2 million. Now quickly see if I'll upload a sample media, right? Let me upload this. And as soon as I will add to the prompt and say, what is this animal, for example, and run it, you'll see the token count will increase, right? And the token count will slightly increase. So as and when even an image, a video, right, here you'll see it says 88,501 tokens. So it took Gemini exactly 88,501 tokens to process everything on its end. And similarly, it took him it was on 892 something, right? And now it is on 313. So this is how it happens. It breaks text, images, videos, everything, every small thing into these units called tokens. Then these tokens are processed by the AI, and accordingly, even the answers are given in form of tokens only. So this sentence that we are getting as an answer was also made up by assembling a lot of tokens as well. So the whole unit of working with Gemini is completely based on tokens. Swiftly moving on, we have this thing called temperature. Now, temperature is a very easy thing to understand. It says creativity allowed in the responses. But what actually do we mean by that? So if I have to take an example, right? Let's say I start writing a story and I say I'm standing at a traffic signal. So the most obvious things that I can see at a traffic signal are maybe a traffic light, a car, a bike, a bus, or maybe I can see at most a lot of people crowding the place, things like that. But I'll never guess that I'll find some mythical creature, or maybe I'll find an animal there on the traffic signal, because that does not make sense. So what happens is that whenever we give Gemini a prompt, everything that it's going to respond with is assigned a value and a probability that how likely this thing is to come next in that sentence maybe, or in that response. And when we increase the temperature, we actually increase the chance of something which has a less probability of coming. For example, in case of standing at a light signal, the probability of seeing a lion is very less. But if for some reason the model generates the word lion as well as a probable answer, then by increasing the temperature, I will ensure that the probability of the word lion getting picked also increases. It's a little convoluted. That's why it has been boiled down in a very easy to understand way that it helps increase the creativity. So whenever I want to, write a very creative thing, like maybe a marketing campaign or something like that, what I'll do is I'll increase the temperature for creative responses. And whenever I need to do something very specific, maybe I wanted to evaluate something, or maybe I want to get its opinion on things from 5 other people. So I don't want it to deviate a lot. So in that case, whenever I'm looking for objectivity, more objectivity and less subjectivity, I'll reduce the temperature. And if I want more more subjectivity, more creative answers, I'll increase the temperature. By default, the temperature is always 1, but you'll see that it's a decimal value which can be toggled any which. Okay. So I'll just set it to 1 and then we'll quickly move on. So all of these things I'll cover very briefly. So let me start with JSON mode first. So here in JSON mode, you'll see that you basically are able to see that how you want to get the response and whether you want to get the response in JSON mode, because everything, when we're talking about APIs, right? JSON is one of the most popular ways of communicating with an API. So if in case we want things to be in the JSON mode or not, can be toggled from here. Then moving on to code execution is it can run the code or whatever we generate in a sandbox environment and so on and so forth. But the most interesting thing is this thing called function calling. So when I, enable this, I'm granted the power of, passing Gemini's output through a function call. What I mean by that is that if I ask Gemini to, can you tell me the weather? Right? If I ask Gemini to do that and run, the answer I already know is that Gemini won't be able to tell the weather. It's taking some time, right? But Gemini does not have access to weather information in real time, or the weather information that is currently on the Google. I can't tell you the weather. I don't have access to real time information like that. But through function calling, if I have access to a weather API, maybe AccuWeather API or anything, I can actually embed my own business logic into Gemini as well. And Gemini will then execute that business logic and take that into account also while generating its output. So it just makes, it's saying try an example as well. And it says, yeah. So if now I actually start doing this and add everything, and it'll be able to do it. It's that easy and that, simple. And finally, moving on to advanced settings. These are the things that are, slightly tricky to understand without having a, very strong mathematical background. Mathematical and AI background is what I'll say. But I'll still give you a very brief, understanding that. And let's start from the bottom this time. So you'll see this thing called top P. And it's saying probability threshold for the top P sampling, and then this thing called top K. Okay, so top P and top K work together and help us, this temperature slider that we are setting is actually being managed through the generation of the top P and top K values. So what top P does is it actually manages the likelihood of a response being, assigned a certain probability value. The higher the top P, the more chances will be that less likely responses are also given a higher probability value, thus increasing their chances of coming up as a response. Whereas through top K, we are able to see what actually needs to be sampled, what tokens need to be considered by top P actually as a, potential feedback or potential response. So this is what top K and top P does. I don't recommend you guys in your first attempt to, play around a lot with it. And actually, there is this one thing called tuning model. We'll look into this as well, which actually does the job of, tuning these parameters, which is called hyper tuning. They're tuning the parameters for us as well. So I'll go through that as well. And the next thing is this called length. Similar to how we have, the amount of tokens we can input, there is also a limit on amount of tokens Gemini can output. This can be changed as well. If I maybe put it to 8 and I ask it something, right? What is the weather like in Indian subcontinent? Or instead of weather, I'll climate, right? First. I'll just quickly ask. Best part is, yeah. So I'll just quickly ask it this, and you'll see that because I've reduced the number of tokens, the response, it is been giving such descriptive responses till now, right? It won't be able to give a very descriptive response now. So this is what we are, usually controlling with the output length. So since it is a very textual response, wait, the settings, this text only took 8, but if you're talking about multimodal input and output, this increasing it always works. So basically, the type of output length we want, how descriptive we want the output to be, that we can set from here. And then adding a stop sequence is very simple. That if we want our execution to terminate at using some special character, which is escape sequences that you guys have might learned in the programming world. So you can add those sequences here as well, and then finally there is this thing called edit safety settings. By default, Gemini comes in baked with certain filters in regards to these certain sensitive topics, for example, harassment, hate, sexually explicit, dangerous content. And what's recommended is that we actually let it be set to what it is by default, but you can definitely play around with it as well, depending on the type of application, the type of use case you're trying to build for, right? So before I move any further, I'm just quickly switching to this slide again, so you guys can again scan and everything, and I'll be taking up any questions that you guys might have, and then we'll quickly switch back again to the demo that we're having, right? So any questions, you guys can start posting the questions in the comments, and I'll maybe answer a few questions, and then we'll maybe go on to understanding the AI Studio even better.
Hi, folks. Do you have any questions to be asked from Rohan? Process so far. Just wanted to also emphasize while walking through the Gemini, tutorials and the hands-on workshop today here with AI Studio. You need to also, start building your own projects on the AI Studio platform itself. So for that, start generating your own API keys. The QR is on the screen, and also we are sending out the messages in the chat box as well. Pick it up from there. Meanwhile, Rohan is setting up the context for you. We'll also move ahead into and deep dive more into the hands-on bootcamp itself. So we'll learn how prompting takes place and different type of prompting itself. So Rohan will take us through. So meanwhile, just want to emphasize to everybody who's watching us today now, uh, create your projects, generate those API keys, and you can follow us during the process. What is Rohan doing on the screen, and we can take things forward from there.
Yeah. So I can see few questions coming in. So one of the questions, are we building a project? So I'll actually be walking you to 3 steps, 3 kinds of things, 3 quick projects that can be done through AI Studio. One would be quick validation within AI Studio using Google Colab. The next would be how we can do it in our own environment, for example, in VS Code. And third would be that Gemini itself has its very own extensive documentation as well for AI Studio, and they have certain sample projects there as well. So I've set up one such sample project for you as well, so you guys can see how do everything and basically walk you through that as well. So I'll just be showing you how easy it is. Like, I'll barely have to write any code, and you'll see how easy it will be for me actually to set everything up. Then another question is that can you explain API key? Sure. So basically, what an API key is, that when Google is allowing us, for an example, in this context, when Google is allowing us, to use Gemini, they want to track what each and every user is doing, who is using that. So through an API key, we are basically assigned, a unique ID through which now we are tracked of our usage of their, code base. So when I am using my API key, Google is able to see the user with this ID is using our Gemini code base for whatever purposes they are using. So they are able to track it. That's how they are able to, offer services like Google Maps and Google Cloud and a lot of other things, right? So that is in a very high level what an API key is and why an API key is required to use an API. Then there's how can we start a project. Don't worry, I'll then very next thing we'll be doing is actually go moving on to starting the project part itself as well, and hopefully that'll clear things up for you as well, right? And if there aren't any other questions, then we'll quickly switch back to AI Studio as well, right? So yeah, let's go. So till now you've seen, right? I've been talking to AI. I gave it a system instruction. I could have played around with these things, but I did not have to use the API key anywhere, right? So where does the API key come in? So we'll start with that actually. So on top, you'll see that there's this interesting button called Get Code. Now, this is what I believe is one of the most powerful features for empowering the developers when using Google AI Studio. So whatever I've been doing, right? Whatever I've been doing, you'll see that everything in this chat has been translated into the code. So what you'll see, I asked which animal is this, the model respond, this is a cute little cat, everything. So whatever I used in the model, that model has now been prepared for me, and now I can start using it in my code as well. So if you'll see, it allows me to copy the code in Python, JavaScript, Go, Android, Swift, Dart, anything, right? And even this thing, these are called curl commands. So I can even issue, for those of you have worked on Linux environment in bash scripting, you know what curl commands are. You can even send out curl requests to Gemini. That is possible. So, and those of you who know that Dart and Kotlin are used for app development, even Swift. So we have support for native app development. Through Dart, we have support for cross-platform app development. Then Go is very popular for building robust backend services. And JavaScript is anyhow used in both front end, back end, and Python is again a very popular language which we use, right? So, yeah, so that is basically just the gist of what all is available. So from here, you will see that it's so easy to copy the code, but that is not where Gemini actually stops, right? They have provided this thing called prompt gallery, right? And these prompt gallery, you'll see, they come with configured prompts that can ask questions, prompts through which you can ask about questions, as to what is happening in a video. You can have a math tutor, a math worksheet generator, maybe scavenger hunt, unit testing. So you can pick any prompt. I'll pick the easiest prompt that is there to understand math tutor, right? And you'll see that this prompt is already ready. Already, a lot of conversation has happened and the model has already been, trained and everything. So now, if I click on Get Code again and I want to open it in Colab. So those of you who don't know what Colab is, I'll tell you very briefly. If you have worked on Jupyter notebooks anytime while on your Python journey, Colab is a tool similar to that, and it allows us to run snippets of Python code, but in an online environment. So now you'll see that we have this generated here. So if you'll go through each and everything, you'll see all of the code is already written for what you need to do, right? So all you need to do is actually just run these cells, and as and when they start running and executing, and you keep on going, you'll see that is all you actually needed to do to get your hands on the code, actual code that needs to be done. You're already one step closer to the code. Now you are no longer talking to the AI in a chat window. You are actually, doing something hands-on with the code, right? So this is this environment, right? So this is how easy it is to export things as a code in AI Studio. So as you'll see, it's taking some time to run the code because it's running on cloud. It's and it's AI ML related as well. So it will take some time. So I already have a duplicate of it ready, in which I have run all the cells already and everything is already prepared. So here you see that once we have run everything, right, and I'll walk you through everything, each step as well. When I run something, right? Now I'm able to talk to the model through my program instead of typing things in the chat or instead of doing anything. And this is the first place where API key comes in. And why is that? Because till now I was working within AI Studio and I was chatting inside AI Studio, so I did not require Gemini key. But Google Colab, even though it is a Google software only, right? Google Colab, even though it's Google software only, wait, I'll just execute all the cells for you and we'll walk through them as well. Yeah. So you'll see, even though it's Google software, but these are two different softwares. Google Colab does not know something like Gemini exists, right? So there is no way for Colab to be able to access the functionalities and the features that Gemini offers. So this is where API key comes in. You would actually need to come here and copy paste your API key here. Make sure to always keep your API value hidden, because as I had mentioned, right, API key is the unique value or unique ID assigned to you through which you use or leverage something, right? So always keep it hidden. Like I've kept it hidden here, and you can give it a name. And once you give it a name, you can use it in the program. So like here it has been used. I'm fetching this API key, and due to this API key, my Google Colab notebook is able to talk to the Gemini API, right? So in the first part, you'll basically see that it downloads all the dependencies that are required. It then imports them. It connects through Google Drive so that anything we are doing here is saved as a backup on G Drive. Then we fetch the API key and we actually link. Now, once we have actually fetched the API key and we access, we start setting up these things. So we firstly set the model type as Gemini Flash. Here it was also Gemini Flash. We could have set it to Gemini Pro as well. Then you'll see that there are certain other things like safety settings, GIS content, and a lot of other things as well. So all of these things actually have been encoded into base 64. Let me run this and I'll just print it here. So you'll actually see what these contents are. So GIS content was nothing but the whole conversation that we were having with the AI that was passed here, encoded into base 64 and added here. Similarly, generation config is nothing but the temperature, top P, top K, and max output tokens that we set, right? And safety settings are again related to all those 4 sliders that you had seen, right? So they are related to that. Then this is again, it itself here says that it is optional to show the conversation. Since I'm here and I'm running everything, I'll just quickly run this here, right? And it'll show the conversation that we had. So basically, whatever you saw here in this JSON object, we are seeing here as well. And now to actually convert those files and upload those files, send it over for processing, and then finally, now from here you'll see that I'm calling this called generative model, and model name is model. So the model is Gemini Flash 1.5. So here we are passing the model name and all the parameters, and now we can start actually using the model itself, right? So here you will see that in the auto-generated code, there seems to have been certain error. I'll just run the code once if I prematurely ran. So it's saying a value error. Now, if I want to debug this issue, you'll see that there are next steps, explain error, right? And if I do next steps, you'll see that even Google Colab itself has integrated Gemini, where it'll tell me how I can actually fix this issue if it ever comes. So it's saying that suggested changes is I should just put it here like this, right? So what I'll do is I'll explain you what's happening here. But if I just comment this out and I put it here like this, it works. So basically what happened was that if for any reason response.candidates was coming as a blank, I was not even checking for that here. It was by default not taking that into consideration that the candidate responses could be blank. So adding this if check on top of it simply fixed the issue, right? So I came across an error. Now I know about it. That's why I already knew what that error was. But even if I did not know, Gemini itself, that is, baked in to Google Colab, helped me solve that error. That's how powerful this tool is, and that's how easy it will be for you guys to actually build something using Google AI Studio. Now, finally, we have run everything. We can, get our model inside this variable and start a chat session. Once we have started the chat session and everything has happened, we are now free to actually start talking to the program through our code. So I'll just give you an example. Can you tell me about quadratic equations? And I'll run it. So basically what you'll see is that I've essentially went into prompt gallery, selected one prompt. I could have made my own chat history, taken my own chat history as well, imported that to Google Colab, and in under 5 minutes, I have a chatbot ready to which I can keep on talking however many times I want, right? I can add another code cell and I can now ask it. Now imagine if this was not here in Google Colab, but it was there in a program, which I'll show you, right? So can you please tell me the roots of x square plus 2x plus 1, for example. This is the last example I'm giving. Then I'll quickly show you what it looks like, to have to embed it in code, right? So due to this API key in Colab, I was able to effectively create a mathematics tutor chatbot in under 5 minutes, and it's explaining me everything so well, right? So how I did it for Google Colab, I can do the same thing here. I can click on get code. I can copy the code in Python, and I can copy paste that code in VS Code. Just give me a moment and I'll have my VS Code up as well. And then we'll actually see what is happening in VS Code as well, right? So before I go into that, are there still any other questions that I can answer? In the meantime, I'm setting up the VS Code, right? Yeah. So this is the VS Code environment. I hope it's visible to everyone. Can someone from the backend team tell me that the screen is visible or not?
It is, Rohan.
Okay, cool. So whatever code I had copy pasted, I'll quickly switch, right? Whatever code I had copy pasted, I pasted it here, right? And the only addition I need to do is that I don't want my key to be public. So in Google Colab, right, I had this provision to add the key separately. So basically what I've done is I created this file called constants.py, and I'm importing it here, and inside that is my Gemini API key. That's it. I've done nothing fancy. All the code is already written here, and this is the only other thing I've added. So if you switch to Google Colab, you'll see that this response and this display part was already there. And I just, hypothetically speaking, if we added a while loop here and we kept looping here, we could keep on talking to it without having to run the cell again and again. So that is exactly what I've done, that I'm taking input from the user. I'll just quickly run this program. So when I run this program, it will run everything, all the print statements and all. And now I can start talking to it how to solve cubic equations. Right? And you will see that it's that easy. It started printing everything here. Now, currently, since it's in a console, it's not printing it in a markdown version. It's printing it in plain text version. But now imagine we were not doing this in an code in a console application. Instead, we were doing it in JavaScript. maybe HTML. Then we just needed to add a text field, something similar that I've already built, right? So if you'll go to the Gemini documentation, you'll see that there are, certain application use cases, and I found this writing assistant to be the most interesting one out of them. And you'll see how easy it is, to set everything up. Like I told you already that you can just copy the code, right? It's that easy. So I've already set up this thing called WordCraft here, right? So basically what WordCraft does is it's a simple chat window which takes a prompt and generates a story. And we can basically, write very complex stories with it. We can write stories with multiple characters. And this is an example which was provided by Google itself. And I thought this would be the most interesting example to show. There is not a lot of things to do. If you want, you can actually run a Node.js server as well, which takes user input. Right, which can take the user input as well. And if you are able to create a node server or something similar to that, you're able to also send API data, fetch API data, and do it but do it very well as well. But for this, you don't even require actually a node server. If you want to, if you have something, an extension like live server runner or something which can just hot reload the front end for you, you'll be able to make very, very nice front end applications just by simply importing. In what I had done is I had imported everything into Python. You can import into JavaScript, and as you're aware, right, JavaScript Node is also a JavaScript based framework, right? So it'll be very, very easy for you to just embed this into your HTML application with or without Node as well. So it is possible to do it without Node too. Just one thing that I'd like you to tell is that for those of you, why I've chosen Python is because Python is the most friendliest, user-friendliest language to do. So make sure to run this pip install command before doing anything, because this command is responsible for actually downloading all the, you would have seen that even in my Google Colab notebook, the very first command that I had to run was this pip install command. So whatever programming environment or language you're using, you would need to get hold of this package called Google-generative AI, which will fetch all the dependencies required for us to use the Gemini code base locally. So yeah, it was that simple. All I did was select a prompt, click on get code, copy pasted that code in my VS Code, added the small while loop, and obviously my API key as well. That is why you are generating an API key. And boom, my code was ready to go. Imagine this now being part of a web application. So you are not restricted or limited to just creating a math tutor, right? I'll just take example of, again, the prompt gallery itself. You can straight away pull up something like doing a video Q&A, audio diarization. And I had showed you, right, you are able to process images as well. So you can actually create maybe a CCTV footage audit tool, in which you can feed it snippets of CCTV footage, 5 seconds, 10 seconds of CCTV footage to see if something fishy is happening, maybe in an ATM or any sensitive place for that matter. You just give those prompts, fine tune your model, get code, and everything is already ready to go. That's how easy it is. But there are few more things I want to cover. These might be slightly more advanced, but I just wanted you all to, be completely comfortable and not be intimidated, because opening this documentation has been made with the purpose of helping you out. But what happens is, and what I've also felt when I was just getting started with my development journey, was that I would sometimes feel intimidated by all of, these subheadings and fine tuning, function calling, what is function calling. So I just want you all to have a base level understanding of all the things, so that while reading this, you don't feel overwhelmed, right? So the last thing I want to explain to you is this thing called structured prompting. So even prompting itself can be of two types, right? It can be a free form prompt, a chat-based prompt, or it can be a structured prompt. So what basically a structured prompt is you'll see, yeah, I've created it here. So if I'm about to open Gemini, right, I'll just quickly open Gemini and I'll just new chat. If I enter here blue and clue and I hit enter, Gemini will generate a random response, right? What structured prompting allows me to do is that I provided it with 6 inputs, that when I enter jar or car, the output should be a roses is red poem. If I enter cat and rat, the output should again be a roses is red poem. If I enter baseball, the output should again be a roses is red, violets are small, we are in India, does anyone even play baseball? I'm just giving an example here. So just by entering 2 words, now I'm ensuring that every time what sort of output I want to give. So what structured prompting allows us to do is that when we want very specific output to be generated for a very specific type of input, and we want to establish a direct correlation between the two, we can use structured prompting. And then on top of that, what Gemini offers is the ability to tune these structured models as well. So the structured prompt example I have, I won't be able to tune because it requires minimum 20. And I have provided only 4 examples. But what I can do is that Gemini has this thing called news handle, its own structured prompts as well. So I can actually fine tune the model itself. So the top P and top K, those parameters that we were talking about, those can be actually fine tuned. And you will see here that a complex process such as fine tuning, where we have to play around with the top P value, the top K value, Gemini itself is taking care of it. And once it is done, it'll take some time. You can play with the epochs, the batch sizes, everything like that. And once this is actually done, you can start using it in chat, or you can even add it to your API, right? So while this is happening, I'll just quickly walk you through the whole summary of everything that we have done. So we learned basically what this chat window is, what all of these settings mean, how we can export code from this environment using get code, what structured prompts are, how using structured prompts we can fine tune things. I've explained it very briefly. How we can use API keys in Google Colab, how we can use API keys in VS Code, and how we can bring our own ideas, our own imagination. I can create a cooking based. So now that it's done, it's still in progress, still fine tuning. Basically, how we understand the model has been fine tuned. The lower it comes to the baseline, the more tuned and accurate it has become. So basically, this threshold that we reached of 1.8, that itself would have been enough. So now I can use it in chat. I can add it in API access. So if I select I can grant access to it as well. I can create a new API key for this model as well. It's very, very flexible and very, very easy. So my whole AI development journey can start with just me talking about whatever idea I have in mind, like answer like Gordon Ramsay, right? And tell me how to cook salmon. And I've just created a recipe bot that interacts with me like Gordon Ramsay, right? Probability of unsafe content. So those of you who have seen Gordon Ramsay know that he uses abusive words a lot. So Google flagged it automatically, saying that there's a probability of unsafe content because Gordon Ramsay is used to using. So you can see how smart and interactive it is. Even I was not aware that I would get some output like this, but I can obviously edit the safety settings. But since everything is being live streamed, I don't want any cuss words to come up here. So I'll probably stop here, and we can again maybe switch on to this part. And you guys, those of you who haven't set up, I'll just quickly share the screen once more, just with the slides, and we can start maybe taking questions, helping you with the process. And yeah. So basically now what I would encourage you guys to do is, okay, firstly, I'll go through the questions, right? I saw a very interesting question. I'm really sorry. I'm cutting myself and I was saying something. I'll get back to it. So Faris has asked that is this like Vertex AI? So you're exactly right, Faris. Actually, Vertex AI is, you can say, the larger, more bigger and bulkier version of AI Studio. So the thing is that when we are using Vertex, Vertex does not only let us train these chat models and all, It also takes care of creating data sets, labeling them, deploying ML models, and a lot of other things as well. Like it is truly an end-to-end ML AI deployment solution. But firstly, the difference is that it is paid. It is sometimes expensive to use for students at least, right? And the learning curve is that if you are training a very huge model, you won't know how much resources you are using up. So what AI Studio helps us does is that it provides the key features of Vertex that a beginner in AI or someone who's just stepping into the world of AI can explore, learn, get confident in, and then explore more advanced tools like Vertex. Anyways, what I was saying was that what I would encourage all of you to do is generate, since you have already generated an API key, right? I want you all to firstly come up with a crazy idea of your own, like I did with the Gordon Ramsay thing, and I got to know that it might cuss, right? Export it in Google Colab, fine tune it, play around with it, and maybe in future we'll roll out one link as well asking for your Google Colab submissions. And I just want you guys to get hands on with it. I don't think there has been any time in history an easier way for us to build AI applications, and I think this would be a great way for you to let your creative juices flow and get the most out of it as well, right? Okay, so Kranti Kumar, you asked a really great question. If you want to create an interactive application, yes, you can do that because as you saw, right? I'll quickly share. If I go to creating a new prompt, it is possible for me to record audio as well. So if I record audio, I'll just quickly record certain audio and I'll say, what is, I'll allow it, what is 2 plus 2? Add to prompt. What was asked here? And now Gemini will do it for me. The question asked is what is 2 plus 2? So yes, it is entirely possible for you to build anything very similar to Alexa. Obviously, there are certain constraints, right? Like Google Home and Alexa in itself are very complete end-to-end products. You would be able to build maybe a base version of them, but it's completely possible. That should be doable. No, Kranti, there's no specific extension as well that you need. You just need to generate the API key, store it in a safe place. It should not be publicly visible in the code. Guys, never push your API keys to GitHub. Always create a constants file or a .env file or whatever the best practice it is in your coding environment to follow. Never ever push your GitHub key, API key to GitHub. Never tell it to your friend or anyone. Anyhow, the APIs we are using here are free, but a lot of the times if the API is paid, then it can be maliciously used as well. So this is a very important thing we need to remember as developers. We should never share our full API key with anyone, right? Any other questions, any other thing I can help with? I'd be really glad to answer because I'm also equally excited to, walk all of you down the path of learning AI, getting into AI, because truly speaking, from the bottom of my heart, I believe that AI, especially with the advent of generative AI, it's going to be play a huge role in the upcoming future of tech and future in general. It will not through tech, it will affect a lot of industries and a lot of sectors and verticals as well. So I'm really excited that I'm able to contribute in whatever little way I'm contributing here in making folks AI ready. So any questions you might have, if I can answer, I'll be really, really glad.
Hi, folks. If you have any questions for Rohan, please feel free to ask in the chat. But yeah, thank you so much, Rohan, for that quick and very in-depth walkthrough of Google AI Studio. And we learned a lot today. I believe it is the same feeling for all the participants watching us. And yeah, so I can see a few questions dropping in. So Buddy has a question. So can we generate a basic AI application through this studio?
Yeah. So it's very basically whatever AI business logic you want to have in your application. If you can imagine Gemini replacing it. So, for example, let me give a very basic example. Like, I want Gemini to, like you were asking about Alexa, right? So, I want Gemini to turn off my lights. I have a Philips smart light and I want to turn that. So, I told you about the feature called adding functions, right? If I add a function within Gemini that controls those lights, I can just ask Gemini to dim the lights, turn on the lights, and Gemini will process it. It will call that API function internally, and then API function will turn off the lights, turn on the lights. So it's anything AI logic related. If you're able to imagine Gemini doing it, you can make that application using AI.
Okay, I don't see any other further questions, but thank you so much. What is the extent of customizability that we can achieve via AI Studio? There's another question for you, Rohan. Let's pick that up because we have already, offboard the time. Let's have this
Uh,
last question and we will wrap up.
Yeah. So thanks for the question, Ayush. So the talking about the customizability, right? Uh, as you're aware, right, that Gemini itself has been trained on millions, hundreds of millions of data points, right? Very, very huge distributed data sets. So our customizability depends totally upon how actually powerful Gemini is, which is a lot. So until and unless the problem is something which can be addressed via LLM, because LLM is again a type of AI. AI has its own different types as well. Like if I start playing chess against Gemini, I'm pretty sure I will win because Gemini is not a chess bot. But if I start playing against a very strong chess bot, I will start losing a chess AI specific. Like Google has this had this chess AI called, I'm forgetting the name. They created this chessbot back in 2020, which defeated all the world's strongest chessbots, right? Alpha Zero, yeah, Alpha Zero. So now Alpha Zero was also an AI, but it was a specific AI made only to play chess. Now, if Alpha Zero and Gemini were to play chess, I'm pretty sure Alpha Zero would win because it's a specialized AI. So any generic AI work that we want to be done, it'll be as customizable as we want it to be because Gemini itself is a large language model. But we have to be, wary of the fact that LLMs are not end all and be all of AI. AI in itself has a lot of other things as well that cannot be solved only using LLMs. So whatever an LLM can do, we can do that as well to any degree of customizability through AI Studio. Hopefully that answered your question.
So thank you so much, Rohan. The participants who have been throughout with us here, it's a wonderful to see so many responses coming in. But thank you so much, Rohan, for walking us through. Again, requesting everyone to kindly, start exploring Google's AI Studios capabilities in your, projects or wheresoever you want to build something related to AI or learn more about AI and explore Google AI Studio and Gemini APIs. So make sure you do it. Generate the start with generating your own API keys. Give us your interest. Like this was just a baseline, workshop boot camp from us, and we'll come up with more advanced ones, the medium advanced and expert levels. So to claim that, you have to start generating your API keys, and we can take that forward from there onwards. But thank you so much, Rohan. It was wonderful having you with us today, and thank you for investing your time with us and walking us through this Google AI Studios bootcamp. So then let's quickly wrap this up. Thanks, Rohan, for being there with us.
Yeah, it was a equally fun time for me as well, being part of this whole session and explaining everything. Thank you so much for having me as well.
Thank you. Wonderful day. Thank you.